Hey everyone, welcome to your personalized deep dive.
Also gonna be fun.
Yeah, so today we're looking at Irukandji jellyfish.
Oh, wow.
You sent us some really cool stuff about climate change and how it's impacting these,
Tiny but mighty?
yeah, tiny but mighty jellyfish, and we're going to see how that could be a big problem for Australia's tourism industry.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to be looking at your notes and a transcript from a news program
Sounds good.
to kind of help you understand this whole thing a little better.
It's a really fascinating topic, and it kind of shows how climate change is impacting things that we don't always think about.
Yeah, like you wouldn't think a tiny jellyfish could have such a big impact.
Exactly. Little shifts can have huge consequences.
Totally. And one of those consequences is that these jellyfish are moving south along the Australian coast.
Right.
And we even have a story here in the transcript you sent us about someone named Ailey White who is stung by one of these.
Oh, yeah, Ailey's story. That's a tough one. She was snorkeling when she got stung and ended up in the hospital with heart failure.
Oh my God.
It just goes to show you how dangerous these little guys can be.
You know what gets me is they say that a lot of times people don't even realize they've been stung until way later.
Yeah, that's right. The symptoms are delayed, which makes them even more dangerous.
Yeah, that's scary. Like, how are you even supposed to track how many stings happen if people don't know right away?
Yeah, it's a real challenge for researchers, trying to figure out the true scale of the problem.
Makes sense.
Like, Dr. Claire Ferreira, she's a GP from Brisbane. She was swimming at Maluluba Beach,
Okay.
had the same thing, delayed reaction, and she's a doctor. And even she had trouble figuring out what had happened.
Wow.
It really shows you how tricky it can be to diagnose these stings.
Okay, so we're talking about these Irukandji, but before we get too far, can you tell us exactly what they are?
Sure. So they're incredibly small, like the size of your fingernail, and almost totally see-through.
Wow.
So you can barely see them in the water.
Oh, that's so scary.
And they have these tentacles that can stretch out almost a meter,
A meter.
packed with stinging cells that deliver some seriously potent venom.
I think I read somewhere that they're more potent than a cobra.
Yeah, people say that a lot. It's a common comparison. But the venom works differently, though.
Oh, how so?
Well, cobra venom attacks your nervous system right away.
Okay.
But Irukandji venom takes a little longer to take effect, and it goes after your cardiovascular system.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which can lead to all sorts of problems.
So we've got this teeny tiny, practically invisible creature with venom that can really mess you up. And now they're spreading because the ocean is getting warmer.
It's definitely a cause for concern.
It is, for sure. And I know you mentioned Professor Jamie Seymour.
Oh, yeah, he's like the Irukandji guru.
Okay. Yeah, he's mentioned a lot in this news transcript I have.
Yeah, Professor Seymour has been studying these jellyfish for years.
Years.
He's done some really important research on their venom and how it affects the heart.
Yeah. What has he found?
Well, he actually did experiments on mice
On
to see how the venom would impact them.
man.
And it turned out that the venom can cause cardiac arrest.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's pretty serious stuff.
So have they been able to use that information to figure out how to treat people who get stung?
They're working on it. But there's still a lot we don't know about how to counteract the venom.
Really?
Professor Seymour's research is like the foundation for creating an antivenom, but it's really complicated.
I bet.
And for now, treatment mostly involves just managing the symptoms and trying to stabilize the patient.
I see.
No quick fix, unfortunately.
Well, that makes the research even more urgent.
Absolutely.
Now, were these jellyfish always in these southern waters, just kind of hiding out?
That's a good question. Historically, they were mostly found in the far north of Australia.
Okay.
But as the ocean gets warmer, they're able to survive further south.
So it's not like they're evolving or anything. It's more like their comfortable zone is expanding.
Exactly. The warmer water is coming to them.
Oh, wow. And that means more people are coming into contact with them.
Right. And that puts a strain on healthcare resources.
For sure. And what about the tourism industry? The transcript you sent me mentioned that.
Yeah, Queensland makes a lot of money from beach tourism.
Yeah, of course.
And if these jellyfish become more common, it could really scare people off.
I mean, yeah, who wants to go on vacation and worry about getting stung by a deadly jellyfish?
Not exactly relaxing.
Not at all. So is this a real threat, or are we talking about a few isolated incidents here?
Well, Professor Seymour thinks it could be devastating for tourism if we don't take it seriously.
Okay.
He's gotten some criticism for being alarmist, but he really believes it's a big problem.
Well, I can see both sides. You don't want to cause panic, but you also don't want to ignore a potential danger.
It's a tough balance.
It is. And it sounds like even the scientists don't all agree on how serious the threat is.
Right. Some researchers think Professor Seymour is exaggerating,
Okay.
while others agree with his assessment.
So we got a lot to unpack here.
We do.
So far, we've established what the Irukandji are, but now we need to delve into why they're migrating south, and then we can talk about what can be done about it.
Sounds like a plan. You know, it's not just about the water getting warmer.
Okay.
It's like climate change is affecting the ocean currents too, and that plays a big role in all of this.
So how exactly are the currents changing?
Think about the East Australian current.
Okay.
It runs down the coast of Queensland.
Right.
And because of climate change, it's getting stronger and warmer. So it's kind of like a super highway for all these tropical marine animals.
Oh, so they're just hitching a ride.
Yeah, exactly, including the Irukandji.
Wow. So it's not that they're evolving to like colder water, it's that the warmer water is coming to them.
You got it.
Wow, that makes sense. And I guess it also means that they're breeding more and maybe even interacting with other species differently.
Exactly. It's all connected.
Right. And earlier we talked about how this could hurt tourism.
Yeah, there have actually been studies looking into that.
Oh, really?
One report said that if there are a lot more Irukandji stings, it could cost Queensland's tourism industry hundreds of millions of dollars every year.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's not even counting the damage to Queensland's reputation.
Yeah, people might start thinking it's not safe to go there anymore.
Exactly. And then there's the potential job losses and the impact on the local communities.
It's like a ripple effect.
Totally. And we also have to think about the pressure on healthcare facilities if more people are getting stung.
Oh, right. They might not be equipped to handle a sudden surge in patients.
Exactly. It's a lot to consider.
And then there's the impact on the environment.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, I imagine these Irukandji could disrupt the whole food chain.
Absolutely. It's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
You introduce a new predator, and it can throw everything off balance.
Wow. So what can we do about all of this?
Well, a big part of it is just making sure people know about the danger.
Okay, like public awareness campaigns.
Exactly. Things like warning signs at beaches and brochures and online resources.
That makes sense.
And working with local communities to get the word out.
So people can make informed decisions about where and when to swim.
Exactly.
And I know we talked about those stinger suits earlier. Are those becoming more common?
Oh, yeah. They're definitely recommended if you're swimming in areas where Irukandji are found.
Even if they're not the most stylish thing?
Uh-huh. Well, safety comes first.
That's true. So we've got awareness campaigns, stinger suits, but what about actually controlling the Irukandji themselves?
That's a lot tougher.
I bet.
Some researchers are trying to use nets and barriers to keep them out of popular swimming areas.
Oh, like a fence in the water?
Kind of, but it's not that simple.
Yeah, I imagine it's hard to control something that's so small and transparent.
Exactly. And you have to think about the ethical implications, too.
Right, like we can't just wipe out a whole species.
Exactly. We don't want to cause more problems while trying to solve this one.
So maybe instead of focusing on getting rid of them, we should be looking at ways to live alongside them.
That's what some researchers are focusing on. They're trying to develop early warning systems to predict when and where these jellyfish blooms will happen.
That's interesting. So like a weather forecast, but for jellyfish?
Exactly.
That would be amazing.
It'd really help minimize the risk.
For sure. And what about treatment for the stings? Any progress on that front?
There is actually, researchers are studying the venom and how it affects the body.
That's good to hear.
They're working on developing a specific antivenom that can neutralize the venom.
So even though prevention is key, having an effective treatment would be huge.
Definitely could save lives.
Okay, so let's say someone does get stung. What should they do?
First thing, get out of the water as fast as you can, safely, of course.
Got it.
And then douse the sting with vinegar.
Vinegar, really?
Yep, it helps neutralize the venom.
I thought that was just for sunburn.
It's good for a lot of things.
Good to know. And then?
They get to a doctor even if it doesn't seem that bad.
Right, because the symptoms can be delayed.
Exactly. And it's always better to be safe than sorry.
What if you're on vacation and you don't even know to ask about Irukandji?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important to be informed before you go.
Okay.
If you're traveling to an area that has Irukandji, do your research and familiarize yourself with the symptoms.
Well, if you get stung, you can tell the doctor what might have happened.
Exactly.
Wow, I had no idea. This was so complicated.
It really is. But the more we know, the better prepared we'll be.
That's true. And so far we've covered the science, the climate change connection, the impact on tourism and the environment, and what's being done to address the risks. But let's bring it back to the personal level for a second. If I was going to Queensland, what are the top things I should do to stay safe?
Okay, well, first, be aware of the risks.
Okay,
Do some research on the areas you're visiting.
got it.
Check for any warnings and make sure you understand the dangers.
Makes sense. What else?
Take precautions.
Mm-hmm.
Wear a stinger suit if you're going to be swimming where there might be Irukandji.
Okay.
Be mindful of the time of year and the weather conditions.
Right.
And try not to swim alone.
Okay. All good advice. What was the last one?
Know what to do if you get stung.
Okay.
Carry vinegar with you and douse the area right away and then get medical help.
Even if it seems like a minor sting?
Exactly.
Those are really good practical tips.
Thanks.
I think sometimes it's easy to get overwhelmed with all the information.
Yeah.
But having a clear plan like that can really help.
For sure. And it's important to stay up to date on the latest research and recommendations.
Because things are constantly changing.
Exactly.
It seems like there's always something new to learn.
That's the fun part.
It is well said. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you about something we haven't really touched on yet.
Okay.
The ethics of all of this. Like, is it even our right to try to control or get rid of a species like the Irukandji, even if they're dangerous to us?
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
It's tricky, right?
It is. It's like, on the one hand, we want to protect ourselves.
Right.
But then we have to think about the environment, too.
Yeah, and these jellyfish were here way before us, so who are we to say they don't belong?
Exactly. It's their home, and they're part of the ecosystem.
Right, even if we don't totally understand what their role is.
Yeah, and what if we get rid of them and then it turns out they were actually important for something?
Exactly. It's like that saying, be careful what you wish for.
Totally. You could solve one problem and create a bunch of new ones.
Yeah, that's why we have to be really careful and think about the long-term consequences.
So maybe instead of trying to eliminate them completely, we should be figuring out how to coexist with them.
Yeah, like finding a balance so both humans and jellyfish can thrive.
That makes a lot of sense, and it goes back to what we were saying about responsible tourism.
Right, it's not just about protecting ourselves. It's about respecting their place in the environment, too.
And minimizing our impact.
Exactly. Responsible tourism means understanding that we're part of the ecosystem, not separate from it.
Right. And I think that applies to a lot of things, not just jellyfish.
It does. It's about making choices that benefit both people and the planet.
So when it comes to the Irukandji, that could mean choosing to swim in areas where they're less common,
Yeah.
or being aware of the time of year when they're more active,
Right.
and supporting research that helps us understand them better.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah.
From the science of the Irukandji to the role of climate change, the impact on tourism, the ethical considerations, and the ongoing research.
It's been a fascinating deep dive.
It has, and I want to leave our listener with one last question to think about.
Okay.
Knowing that even the experts are still learning about these jellyfish, what steps can you take to protect yourself and be a responsible tourist in areas where these creatures might be present?
That's a great question for everyone to consider. Keep learning, keep exploring, and stay safe out there.
Great advice. And that wraps up our deep dive into the world of the Irukandji jellyfish and the impact of climate change on marine life.
Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.